All right, so we're live. Locker Room, number one source, Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2, Sports Radio 610. Subscribe, like, comment, cuss, discuss. That's what we're here for. We're 16 days away from the NFL draft. Cabin fever's crazy. The dialogue is insane. And I kind of saw the light today. And it's a weird light seeing. So it's one of those things where I saw the light. I started thinking about stuff that we talked about in the past, but the light didn't necessarily clear stuff up. It kind of made me a little bit more, I don't want to say confused, but intrigued might be the right way to describe it, because we're leading up to this draft. Shout out to everyone in the chat. And we're starting to get momentum that Bryce Young is going to be the number one pick. And that seems to be the belief. Might not mean a damn thing, but we're in the season of speculation. We're in lying season. So we might as well embrace it. So I started thinking, as we've began to talk about the Texans, we began to talk about, what is DeMeco Ryans going to do? What does Nick Caserio want to do? I started to talk about this at the end of the show, that DeMeco Ryans is clearly not on the same time frame as Nick Caserio. He's not. Nick Caserio has been here for 3 years. We've been through the mud of not having a quarterback. We've all been through it. So we might have some uncertainty. We might feel that there needs to be pressure to get a quarterback. But DeMeco Ryans, he's not there. While we were going through this, DeMeco Ryans was in San Francisco, going to NFC Championship games, going to the Super Bowl. So he hasn't been through this pain. And he hasn't dealt with what people have been dealing with here. So the notion that DeMeco Ryans is feeling any pressure to get a quarterback it's not his reality. Furthermore, and this is where my mind really started turning, because I've talked about this a lot. I've talked about the similarities between San Francisco when DeMeco Ryans got there. And I'll bring John Crumpler on in a sec. We'll talk about all this. But I've talked about, the similarities in San Francisco and Houston and the situation that DeMeco Ryans is coming into. And I'll just lay those out for you real quick. Let's go back to San Francisco. San Francisco is 2 one-and-done coaches the previous 2 years. They have someone who's taken over calling the shots that's being questioned significantly. The entire culture of their organization is being questioned, and they go and they bring in the most sought-after coach to oversee this process and figure stuff out. Sounds familiar, right? Houston, 2 one-and-done coaches just like them. Cal McNair's getting crapped on just like Jed York is. You have a falling out with Bill O'Brien a couple of years before, falling out with Jim Harbaugh a couple of years before. You have an aging core, a core that's going away, much like San Francisco did in the Harbaugh days. Texans had that too. You had the dead cap, all that type of stuff. You bring in a head coach, and you hope that head coach is going to turn it around. There's a lot of similarities, right? We've talked about this. The one thing that I have not talked about enough when it comes to the similarities, and this is where I wonder, because a lot of you learn lessons throughout life. You learn lessons from your father. You learn lessons from your grandfather. I sound like I'm going Colin Cowherd. I promise it'll make sense. It's not going to be like some sort of bull crap philosophy. But you learn lessons, and it's based on their philosophy, and a lot of events happen. And then when you find yourself in that situation, you act on that accordingly. Sometimes, even if the result didn't work out, you take the philosophy that they had when they were in that situation and you act on it. Sometimes you see the mistake they made, and maybe that makes you paranoid to where you don't want to make that same mistake. There's some people who've had fathers, do things that they would never want to do. So because of that, they're extra cautious and they decide not to do that. There are some whose fathers made mistakes and they keep those philosophies and they keep going and they act on that. Let's go to April 27th, 2017. This was an important date for the Houston Texans. Very important date for the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans trade up in the first round. They draft Deshaun Watson. We all remember that. Good times. Hasn't traveled as well with time here as you would like. What was going on in San Francisco? Because that was the starting point that DeMeco Ryans was beginning his coaching career. Kyle Shanahan was a first-year head coach. We've talked about the similarities already. Just think about how similar it actually is. Because the San Francisco 49ers had 2 first-round picks. They didn't have a quarterback at all. They didn't have a quarterback. They had the second pick in the draft. The San Francisco 49ers did. They had the second pick in the draft. They passed on Deshaun Watson. They passed on Patrick Mahomes. They passed on Mitchell Trubisky. And they made that mistake. Now, Kyle Shanahan with The Athletic, he has said multiple times, obviously, if you could go back in time, you take Deshaun Watson, you take Patrick Mahomes, and who knows where the NFL's at right now had Kyle Shanahan done that. Who knows where they're at? It might be a dangerous thing. So the mistake is obvious, but I want to dive into the philosophy because much like a lot of times when your mentor gives you a philosophy, even if it doesn't work, you take that philosophy and sometimes you put it to practice. DeMeco Ryans is in a similar situation, identical situation as Kyle Shanahan with the number 2 pick. He's evaluating quarterbacks. He needs to build a team. He's taken over an organization that's had 2 one-and-done coaches. He's taken over an organization that's been scrutinized. He's looking at these quarterbacks. What was the philosophy that Kyle Shanahan had? Here's a direct quote from The Athletic with Kyle Shanahan talking about this. Quote, when I came here, I think we had the 32nd ranked defense, the 31st ranked offense, and didn't have a quarterback. And you have the second pick in the draft, and you look into all the stuff. Now, before I came here, I had a very good idea. This is important. We would be able to get a free agent quarterback the next year, one that I knew you could win with. So you're looking into these rookies. We've got the second pick in the draft, and no one at that time was considering those guys top 5 picks or top 10 picks, but people knew they had some ability. Now, he's talking about Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is not on the market next year. But if you're thinking a year ahead with the quarterback like Kyle Shanahan was, that was his philosophy. And keep in mind, DeMeco Ryans is in all these meetings. So Kyle Shanahan is sitting up there. He's trying to build this squad. He's got the number 2 pick. They're breaking down Deshaun Watson. They're breaking down Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, they misevaluated. But Kyle Shanahan's sitting there talking to a first-year coach in the NFL and DeMeco Ryans, who's a quality control guy. A first-year coach in the NFL is a quality control guy, and Bobby Slowick. And he's talking about his philosophy. He's saying, we like this guy next year. We like Kirk Cousins. So, yeah, Deshaun, Patrick, they look okay. We got to build our whole team. We got to build our whole squad. That's what we got to do. So he waited a year down the line. Texans got 2 first-round picks next year. There's a pretty good draft. Might not be the Kirk Cousins philosophy, but maybe this crazy stuff about thinking about a quarterback next year, maybe it's something that DeMeco's doing. Kyle Shanahan did it. Not proportional, but Kyle Shanahan did it. Let's take it a step further. Let's hear Kyle Shanahan more on the philosophy and what he was thinking. And this is where it gets really interesting. When we came here, and this is with The Athletic, when we came here, my goal was always to hopefully build a D-line. I thought the D-line is kind of what gets you to the Super Bowl, but you've got to have a quarterback to do it. So which is going to come first? You have guys that weren't being classified as top 10 picks yet because no one was exactly a slam dunk. And so do you want to make that risk? Or do you know you have something next year? Go back to the Cousins and go back to the Caleb Williams. So why don't you just look at other positions and try to build them? Because our team isn't totally ready exactly for a quarterback right now, close quote. So what does DeMeco Ryans take from this? There's a lot of ways you can look at this. You can look at this, and again, it goes back to how do you gather the lessons that you take from your mentors? Does DeMeco Ryans focus on the mistake and say, man, I can't believe we missed out on Patrick Mahomes. I can't believe we missed out on Deshaun Watson. I don't want to do that. Maybe he's over aggressive and he wants to overcompensate and make and make the move for the quarterback. Does he focus on that? Or does he focus on the philosophy? Because the philosophy was very simple. Obviously, if DeMeco Ryans thought that CJ Stroud was Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, he's going to take him. So don't give me that, well, you got to get a quarterback. Obviously. Like if DeMeco Ryans knew that there was a franchise quarterback, he's going to do that. But is he desperate to try to force a franchise quarterback that maybe he doesn't believe in? Or is he committed to that philosophy? Does he come into the similar situation? We've already talked about it. Consecutive one-and-done coaches, assets, the opportunity to potentially get a quarterback a year from now, number 2 pick, building the D-line, et cetera. Does he focus on that philosophy? I mean, what does it all mean? Don't know. What does DeMeco take from 2017? It's crazy to think about, but it is important. Because what is the philosophy going to be? What did DeMeco learn from that? And if you look at what San Francisco did, they traded back one spot with Chicago. They got a 3rd-round pick. So maybe if a team trades with Arizona and DeMeco doesn't like a quarterback, maybe he trades back. Because San Francisco might not have been right. They got Solomon Thomas. They thought they got the best D lineman in the draft. So does DeMeco do what Kyle did? Hey, whoever trades with Arizona, you guys want to trade up a spot? Give me an extra 3rd. I got 3 thirds now. I can work with that. I'm going to get who I think is the best player in the draft. Hopefully he's a better player than Solomon Thomas. Move back. Maybe he's in no hurry. Hell, later on that season, 49ers traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. Do we see some sort of Mac Jones thing? I don't know. There's just a lot of possibilities, and I think that the main thing to take away is that DeMeco Ryans has been through this situation, and it's a matter of, is he going to focus on the mistake? Is he going to focus on the philosophy? Is it going to be a mix of all? The bottom line is this. If he likes CJ Stroud, and there's a lot of people saying draft CJ Stroud, I like him. If you like him, and if DeMeco likes him, DeMeco's going to take him. It's that simple. Hell, if this were DeMeco's 3rd season or 4th season and he didn't have a quarterback and he were in Indianapolis' situation, there's a freaking chance that he takes a quarterback whether he loves him or not. That's not the situation he's in. It's a situation he's been in before with Kyle Shanahan. He's lived it. What does he think of it? Mind blown, light seen, but I'm kind of blinded by the light as I'm seeing the light. So there are even more questions now than before. Let's bring in John Crumpler.
Damn.
Crumpler, how you living, sir?
Landry, I'm doing well. That was quite the opening rant. Thought I was listening to the herd for a minute there. That was.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but I appreciate you.
No, I'm a big I'm a Cowherd fan, so
there you go. There you go.
Compliment. But I'm doing well. It was quite the news day. Not what I expected for a Tuesday, but
yeah, we had a lot of CJ Stroud dissection as a prospect. I know you wanted to talk about this. What do you think about this? And a lot of it is Michael Lombardi. Lombardi's a very opinionated guy, but this is where we are though right now. Assuming that Bryce goes, this is what matters the most. What do you think of CJ Stroud? That's really what's going to happen.
I mean, I really like CJ Stroud. I think I've been on this show previously. I've said that multiple times now, but I do think it's quite interesting. The almost, I want to call it a pseudo-organized teardown of CJ Stroud at this point by the national media as we enter a place where the Texans, now all the teams picking up that like you're talking about, they might not feel the pressure to pick that quarterback. And stuff's coming out. We don't really know what happened with CJ Stroud and his S2 score, but if it was okay, I think we would have heard about it by now. I think they would have tried to put out that fire. We don't know what's going on with CJ Stroud. Obviously, Lombardi. I don't really buy the coaching thing. Do you buy that? That felt a little too conveniently timed / cliched at this point.
I mean, I'm sure that here's what happens, and this is something that I do. I'm in the business, so I'll pull back the curtain.
All right.
A lot of times you'll use stats when they back up your argument. And I call it selective statistics. Michael Lombardi might talk to a lot of guys. There might be two people that agree with what he says, or they just act like they know what he's saying when he throws it out there. So I think it's selective information. I'm sure there might be some people that say the opposite to him, but is he going to present that when he's trying to make his point? Probably not.
No, that's fair. That's very fair. It's a lot for a guy who went an entire month as essentially the presumed number one pick. Just not what I expected for Stroud's stock at this point. And I did not think, 48 hours ago, I would have said with 100% confidence, I don't understand how Houston could pass on taking a quarterback in this draft. And all of a sudden there look like there's some factors both externally with what's happening to the stock of a CJ Stroud, with Carolina focusing in on a Bryce Young, and internally with potentially DeMeco having a bit of a leash here to take a lot of time with this. We don't know what's going on with the GM situation, where all of a sudden maybe they can wait.
Maybe. I mean, I don't think DeMeco Ryans is in a hurry, and I don't know if Nick Caserio is the kind of guy that's going to hurry. So that's really the overall philosophy. I mean, it does suck that they're not in control, but again, it's also cabin fever. I just, when you hear the Kyle Shanahan philosophy and you see that DeMeco's been in that situation, it's really just a matter of what do they think of CJ Stroud. And let's be honest, CJ at least has last dibs with Carolina next week, so he's going to be their final visit. I do wonder, how much stock should we put into him getting the final crack at it? Because I think you could look at that. Sometimes some people save the best for last.
He's sharing the day with Anthony Richardson, though.
What's that?
They're coming on the same day. Him and Anthony Richardson are sharing the 18th, which I was not thrilled to see. Okay, this is what I would ask you, though. You bring up the Shanahan philosophy of starting a rebuild. Jason, good evening, man. Landry, where would you sit on that? If you were DeMeco, what would you take away from Shanahan? Because if I was him, the big takeaways I'd have is Solomon Thomas was a safe prospect. It was this can't miss defensive end. Turns out you can miss. It would be that ultimately you're able to build the rest of your team, even if you don't hit on that number 2 pick. I think I'd be a little less worried about hitting on it. And then number 3, I think it shows that you do kind of, I think Kyle invested in the defense because he knew he could fix the offense and he could look later. And I wonder if DeMeco at the same is going to take the idea of saying, I'm going to put resources on offense, knowing that my brain can fix the defense in the way that Shanahan kind of built an offensive empire just on his own scheme. So that would be my thoughts on it. But I'd be curious, what do you think the takeaway should be from 2017 to 2023 comparison?
Just that he's been through it. I mean, I don't know what his takeaway is going to be, but just the fact that he's been in the situation and he was sitting in a meeting and he was being told a philosophy and he knows what, I mean, he's lived that philosophy. He's lived passing on a quarterback and he's just all of this experience. It's really just a matter of how he gathers it. But I mean, it's hard for me to imagine, being a first year head coach, quality control. We know how DeMeco works. You're sitting in meetings with Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan's preaching to you and you're not taking something there. At least being, aware of that philosophy or, maybe adapting that philosophy, putting it to practice. That's what I did. I don't know what it really just comes down to. It's very simple. And I was talking to McLean about this today. He keeps saying, well, they need a quarterback and they need, the fans, you don't, if you wait, you might have to trade even more for Caleb Williams or Drake May next year. What if they're better? Cause there's not, I hate that we even have to say this, but there's not a GM in the world that's not going to take a franchise quarterback. Hell, there might be some that would take two, like if they could, like in the draft, like at the end of the first round. So of course they need a quarterback. Everybody needs a quarterback. It's really just about what do they think of whoever's there at two, because there's a lot of philosophies they could have. They could say, well, we have extra picks, so we can shoot for the stars when we don't maybe love someone as much as we love the other guy. You could say that. Or you could say, we have these extra picks, so maybe we're less likely to shoot for the quarterback. There's really no right answer. It just kind of depends what your opinion is. It depends what your philosophy is. And I respect all opinions. We do this all the time. Like we talk, we cuss, we discuss all that. But the one thing that I just don't have time for is, well, they need a quarterback. Well, no kidding. Like they need a quarterback. Okay. Like give me something, give me a name. Like tell me that you love CJ Stroud and then we can get down with that. But they need a quarterback. They need to take a quarterback. It doesn't work.
Not a great reason to take one.
What if they needed one last year? What are they doing? They taking Kenny Pickett? I mean,
no.
It's sometimes it just doesn't work that way. And that's where I think that, something so important and something where there's so many mistakes. The reason that those mistakes are made is because the draft it's awesome, but very rarely, like if you go out to eat and you don't like two of the entrees, you just don't get them. You just don't get them. You maybe don't even go to the restaurant. But for some reason, when we're talking about quarterbacks, we feel like we have to pick someone. Like how often do you hear someone say, you hear it ever so often, I don't like any of these guys. I don't like any of these guys. There's some people in the comments saying it, but a lot of times you just feel like, oh, I hate Bryce Young, so I love CJ Stroud. I don't like his height, so I love CJ Stroud. I'm going to try to hype up CJ Stroud. That's kind of the state of draft dialogue, which I love.
Well, I think that comes from, and I was going to talk about this anyways, I think there's really two factors that I'm kind of thinking about if they defer this decision. The first would be looking back to 2017. So obviously in that draft, Patrick Mahomes makes it to 10, Deshaun Watson makes it to 12. And I think the next year's draft, 2018, probably permanently changed how we look at drafting quarterbacks. Obviously, Josh Allen goes 7 there. Lamar goes 32. They both turn into all-pro quarterbacks. And it reevaluates what traits we look at. And it makes me question, looking at 2017, does a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes ever make it to 10 again? And I would argue probably not, as the league looks at what's coachable and what's not. Is, those guys, especially in a passing-based league, as the rules change and they realize this is good for our TV product, this is why people watch, the quarterback continues to be emphasized. I think it's going to be harder to be in position to draft one of those guys. And then as it pertains to 2024 in particular, I think Houston will be taking a really particular gamble that, one, a team's going to be willing to trade one of those two players. They're not just, I think whoever has the pick to Caleb Williams, they'll trade their starter, even if they have one, unless it's one of these rookies this year. And then two, can they outbid every other team? And I think that has to factor into how you're looking at this class of quarterback.
Yeah, but I get that. I obviously that, but you do have a clear guy 1 year away, much like Cousins with the 49ers. They adjusted and they brought in Garoppolo. Yeah. So they adjusted. They weren't like married to the plan, but sometimes, there's a possibility that they don't like any of those guys either. Now, maybe they do, and that's the thing, but the problem is if they don't like CJ Stroud or at 2, or they just wanted to do that, I think the patience is what really matters there. But yeah, there's definitely a risk with going up, with having to try to go up and get those guys, and you're not tanking. I don't think you're going to be a 3-win team this year, so there's not going to be that. So it will be difficult, and there will be a lot of teams competing with you. But I think, yes, it is risky, and it's probably a risk that they would not want to take. I just think it's more so about the willingness to wait for a quarterback as opposed. And look, let's be honest, and I think you made this clear. I want to make this clear. Kyle Shanahan's ability to coach guys up is why you can make mistakes like that. Like Absolutely. Making mistakes like the one that San Francisco made, that will get a lot of coaches fired. Like your ass will be gone in 3 years and you will not be able to overcome that. So there is a certain element to having Kyle Shanahan coach as opposed to the Texans not drafting CJ Stroud and him somehow going and becoming like a franchise quarterback. It's a little bit different. They can make those types of mistakes.
I think that you can erase some of those sin. I mean, the fact it really feels like there's no good substitute for an elite quarterback other than probably 5 offensive coaches in the league right now. Maybe just 2. I think Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan are the guys I think of that can make up for when their guys are not in position. And part of that is they have great skill players. And DeMeco's not going to be able to make up for that sin, that Cardinal, if you don't have a quarterback. I think his defense can be great, but we've seen what the ceiling is on those teams. It's generally 8 to 9 wins if your defense is elite, if your offense isn't going to be able to do anything. So it puts him in, like you said, a dangerous place. And maybe it's one he's not worried about because he knows I've got a 6-year contract. We can be bad this first year, these first 2 years. It's not going to be about winning. It's about taking the best player available. But at the same time, I think quarterback purgatory in this league without an offensive head coach is a terrifying place to be.
No, you're absolutely right. And I'm out. Houston says, Landry, that 49ers plan in 2017 was wrong. Why would DeMeco repeat that? Yeah, they obviously missed on the quarterback. But it's more about the philosophy. Like if your dad has a philosophy with you and he beats it into you and, maybe he didn't execute it, do you still practice the philosophy? Did the philosophy get beaten into you? I don't know that. I mean, I think the execution of the plan was wrong. And obviously they didn't evaluate, Mahomes and Watson the way they should have. But I will say, like, it's not like they passed on Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson went 2 picks later. Like it's easy to sit here. Like that's the other thing, they went 10 and 12. So as it was a bad evaluation. A third of the league made that bad evaluation, including the team that traded with them to get the quarterback. But it was a philosophy that Kyle Shanahan explained. And the philosophy was wait a year for the quarterback and build everything else accordingly with the second round. So yeah, it didn't go the way that they would like for it to. You are 100% correct about that.
Landry, I love that you're talking about the football DNA that DeMeco got from San Francisco, because he talked about that today in the presser. They asked him a question of being in the room for all of the position talks. And he said, I've been in the war room for every single position group when I was in San Francisco. None of this is new to me. He talked about it, learned how to evaluate input from other coaches and how to lead that room really. And he's seen it. He was in the room for the Trey Lance discussion, in the room for passing in 2017. He's done this dance before on both sides, whether that was the crazy quarterback investment or passing on a class. And I think that's going to factor into how he thinks one way or another.
And that's the thing. Like you've been in medical school, like, you remember the first time that you went in there as like a zealous medical student or something like that first meeting or your residency or whatever, you go there, you're all ears. You're sitting there and you're just soaking in information. I remember my first journalism class when I finally got to start taking the journalism class after I got the basics out of the way. You go in there, man, I remember it like it was yesterday. Mr. Dean, I remember Robert Wernsman, I remember Parkinson. You go in those things, you're listening to every damn thing they say. And I still to this day, I'm not even like an investigative journalist or anything like that. I still remember stuff they say and still put it to practice. Follow the money, skepticism. Like shout out to Pete Bruton. Like you remember all these things. And DeMeco Ryans is a first-year NFL coach. He's listening to Kyle Shanahan talk about this philosophy, whether it's right or not. And maybe it's as simple as him wanting to learn from the mistake that San Francisco made. Maybe it's that simple, but you took something from that.
It sets the foundation for how you're going to think about things. And the question is, I mean, that can take you in so many different directions. It is nice that we have someone who I think the fan base trusts and that comes from a really successful organization and how they draft and how they team build. But it is interesting, the 2 spots they've been in previously compared to this one.
Frank Z says, people say CJ can't roll out of the pocket and throw the ball. I say go rewatch the Georgia game. I don't know who has said that. I haven't heard
people say that. That's a straw man. Yeah. I think Stroud's great on the move. I think that's one of my favorite parts about his game. I tweeted this morning. I think Stroud has more to add physically. You look at him, he's skinny right now. I think he can add to that frame. He can do everything you ask in the NFL right now. I do think it's awkward for him, though. Not the rolling out part, but just knowing when it's time to do that if it's not part of the play.
Some more comments here. John Crumpler here. Bruce said that Patrick Storm is hinting that Caserio might be gone and 49ers assistant GM replaces him. I have no idea about that. I didn't even see Storm say that.
I was trying to text you about this. So Lombardi came out today on his podcast.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. He said that there's talks that maybe there could be some
organizational shuffling.
I heard someone texted me asking me that question the other day, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" I won't name him, but I think most of y'all might know him. But he asked me, and I was like, "I don't know who's telling you this and what's going on." I'm
going to ask you afterwards. I think I might know who it is. I've had a similar discussion recently. I think it's a great. It's I was talking to Rivers, and he pitched it to me as a conspiracy theory that Caserio could be out the door based on his lack of press availability, which I actually thought was a really good, as far as like conspiracy theories goes and just throwing things around. It's true. We haven't seen Nick Caserio in like 4 months now.
I mean, we've had him on our station 3 times, so maybe I live in my own little bubble. But yeah, I don't talk to Rivers. Cap asked me, so I don't know if Cap was talking to Rivers or whatever. I don't know. Does Rivers write about the Texans anymore? I know he retired. I
think he does. Like every other month, he'll throw something out there when he has something he wants to say. But
Edward asked, any truth to the rumor Nick C possible? Yeah, we'll play the Lombardi tomorrow on the show. We'll try to get more into what Lombardi's saying. Michael says we need a QB now. No kidding, sir.
No.
It's not. If they don't take a quarterback, it's not. I mean, the willingness to wait is not because they see a franchise quarterback. It's because they don't think it's a franchise quarterback. So they don't want to force it. But, yeah, they know they need a quarterback.
Landry, I've got a question for you. Do you think it would be fair for Nick Caserio to be on the hot seat? Because I think that's what a lot of the discussion is going to be about.
Cap doesn't talk to Rivers either, so you're a weirdo for that.
Okay, I like Rivers. Good writer. Very good writer.
Okay. What were you saying? I'm not saying he's not. I thought he retired though. Didn't he announce his retirement? Like
he did. He thought the team was taking down his film, I think, and then
he steals the videos and doesn't give credit. Like he doesn't give credit. He steals them, and then he dissects Texans All Access. That I'll just go ahead and say it. That's the most chump thing that I've seen someone do online, and I've seen a lot of people try to dunk. Like you're gonna nitpick John Harris and Mark Vandermeer having to talk about 2-win teams. Come on, bro. Like if you want to nitpick any radio host or something like that, you're nitpicking Texans employees having to do that. But yeah, I mean, you're stealing people's content and then not even putting anything on it. So yeah, what were you saying? My bad. I got on a tangent.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. I was asking, I think a lot of the dialogue tomorrow is going to be about whether it's fair or not for Nick Caserio to potentially be on the hot seat. Do you think?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. And my answer would be probably not. But I do wonder, what his timeline is. I do think it's DeMeco. If DeMeco doesn't want to work with him, he's not going to work with him. It's DeMeco's team. So there's not going to be no power struggle where Nick Caserio wins. They seem to be aligned. But yeah, and that's the other thing where is Caserio feeling different heat than DeMeco? Because Caserio's been here 3 years and DeMeco is not. So are they going to be on the same trajectory there? Yeah. Because if Nick Caserio loves CJ Stroud and DeMeco doesn't, yeah, I mean, are you going to give a coach that is clearly the face of the franchise? Are you going to give him a quarterback
player he doesn't want?
Yeah, I mean, I just think at that position, the tie's got to go to DeMeco. Jerome says, appreciate you. I still think build in the trenches. If we take a QB at 2, fantastic. But if we want to take Anderson, then I'm happy. Trenches is how you win a ball game. You can win with the quarterback too. You can win with the quarterback too.
You can definitely win with the quarterback.
But I get what you are.
Anderson won't be a bad pick. I don't think it gets you tangibly closer to competing in the AFC.
Caleb says Lance said the same thing about Nick being gone. See, Lance, now we're getting somewhere. I mean, if Lance is saying it, hell, maybe Lombardi's talking to Lance. Like a lot of times you can kind of connect it, but I think the conversation that we're having can be connected. Like we obviously know that DeMeco, when the GM has less years on his contract than the coach, and the coach is like the chosen one, and he's revived the fan base, and the GM has had ties to, the POS, person of service, Jack Easterby, and all that type. I mean, it's a little bit different. I mean, I think I would love for them to work together and figure it out, but make no mistake about it. I mean, it's healthy speculation because DeMeco's the face of this thing.
And I think Nick Caserio being on the hot seat potentially does give some credits towards the idea that they could pass on a quarterback. Because one of the big points we keep coming back to with that quarterback is, hey, this is the year. This is year 3 of Nick Caserio's rebuild. It's time for them to compete. And no matter what anyone says, this is year 3, guys. And if Nick Caserio's on the way out, that kind of resets the clock. That makes you say they do not have to compete right now. They're kind of saying mission failed on that era of Texans football, the Caserio era, and giving over to DeMeco and a GM who, like we were talking about, would see eye to eye, making sure there's not going to be any awkward situations.
Sean Super Tech, I think that's Star Trek thing. This is straight up crazy talk. Why would you want DeMeco to be put under so much pressure and scrutiny right out the box? Which is more pressure? Taking a quarterback that you don't think is a franchise quarterback and trying to make it work, or building a team the way that you want to build a team with less pressure? Like, which comes with pressure? I think when you have a franchise quarterback, you get more pressure. So I don't look at it as DeMeco Ryans passes on a quarterback and all of a sudden there's all kinds of pressure. I think you can look at it either way.
I think the quarterback would raise expectations pretty immensely.
JH, Landry Crumpy, how much input do you think Slowick has on this year's draft? I do wonder, like, when it comes to offense, I mean, he is the guy. He's the offensive guy. So I'm assuming, and he's the tape guy. So I'm assuming that
my take would be that I don't think they can take a quarterback without his approval, but I think if they don't want one and he wants one, he can't push it through, if that makes sense. I don't think they'd go his direction without talking to him, but I doubt he's going to guide the direction on where they actually go, what position wise.
Go back to Nick's arrival, list every transaction. You want me to list every transaction he's ever made? Like, what are you doing, man? Like, what kind of party are we trying to have? List every transaction he's ever made. There's not one item that Nick should be fired. If that's the Cook steal and missing in
the Shaq trade or the Anthony Miller trade, or how many guys did we trade for the first year that we cut before the season started? I'm sorry, this is petty, but like, I think you could assemble a list pretty easly of some questionable decisions.
Lance said he heard a media member, so maybe it was Lombardi. Maybe he was talking about Lombardi. Maybe that's what he was referring to. Who knows? Daniel asks, how do you take Houston not ready for a QB? We need a QB, or stadium going to be empty again. Come on, don't push that narrative. You know what I don't really like the word narrative is like used too loosely now. Like, it's like there's no narrative being pushed. There's an opinion. Like, it's a narrative. Like, there's no narrative. But of course they need a quarterback. You're not breaking the news there. All you clowns saying we have to take a QB at 2. Oh, we got someone who's not down with it. There's not a QB this year worth taking it to. All average at best. And if the Texans feel that way, that's where we could end up here. OG Texans, Landry, my friend, you were too paranoid. We will get Bryce at 2, my compadre. Hey,
I don't think we're getting Bryce at 2. I really hope that's true. I just don't think it's happening.
Don't threaten me with a good time. Joe Nathan, people are actually saying wait for Arch Manning. Man, can he step on the field at Texas? I did enjoy that pivot interview with Sark today, though. Matt Perez, CJ will do fine, guys. We can win with him, and we just have to surround him with playmakers and good offensive line. It's going to be a good day with JSN or Edge at 12.
I will say, I think CJ has to be better than win with. Wouldn't you agree with that? He needs to be a win because quarterback if we're going to take him this high.
I don't know. Does he?
Like, I feel like I'm not taking. I'm going to take
So what are you saying? He has to be like, more Herbert / Burrow than Garoppolo.
I mean, you got to be a tractor. You can't be a trailer. I think, probably top 8 quarterback, top 10, someone you can win because of. Landry.
Yeah, I guess, man. I don't know. I'm trying.
How good would he need to be for you to take Stroud? I know you don't like Stroud, so this might make it more difficult.
I like Stroud fine. I just don't know how much they like him. I mean, I like him fine. I think you can make a case. Like, I think it's I think the pressure does come down because you have extra draft picks, or there could be, you can look at it either way, man. You got an arsenal to work with. Like, do you have, I think they could make a case that maybe if they love CJ Stroud, that's the ideal situation. But I think that the biggest thing is going to be like, are they going to have more willingness to swing for the fences because of the draft equity? Or are they going to, like, this is assuming that they don't like Stroud, or are they going to be willing to wait? It could really go either way. And it's the beauty of trading your franchise quarterback and getting max assets, which that's the one thing I think Nick Caserio handled best. And that, fortunately for him, that was the most important thing and the most difficult thing that he had to go through was the Deshaun Watson trade. So that's one thing that he
A+
that he executed perfectly.
Yeah,
especially given that the card he was dealt.
No.
That's where I'm at on that. Any other thoughts from the news that's going on right now? You're just injecting this into your veins. Like, your timeline is just all these videos and all that. You're just like,
I should be studying so much better than I am right now, and I just can't take my eyes off of it. I'm very invested in this pick. I don't know. I feel like we've hit the main points, and I do think that, I mean, we're virtually in the same spot that we were a week ago when I came on. It's just there's some tidbits starting to emerge about how the organization, I don't think we actually know what they're thinking right now, but I think we have some reasonable data points to say this is the position they're coming from. How does that shape how they might be thinking? And we're starting to learn more about these draft picks.
Jake Asman asking, what color vest will Caserio wear? I don't think he wears a vest.
I'm going to go blue.
I'm going to say no vest on draft night. That's going to be my prediction.
He's got to wear the vest. He can't bring in the new franchise quarterback without a vest.
Bijan at 12 is getting a lot of run now.
You were single-handedly pushing the Bijan at 12.
I'm not pushing anything. I'm just telling you. Telling you what people are doing right now. He's getting a lot of love.
You definitely have the biggest platform of anyone who has given love to Bijan at 12. Is that fair to say? That
happens. I mean, I'm just here to get ballers, sir.
Fair enough.
I'm just here to get some ballers. Everyone's saying use him like Debo, use him like Christian McCaffrey. What are we doing? I keep hearing like, yeah, Bijan's deep. Nah, Bijan's Christian McCaffrey.
Well, the problem is, what do we do with Dameon Pierce? Are we just going to put him on the sideline? Really good football player that you've got for dirt cheap. Dameon Pierce. I'm just asking, is there we got to think of ways to
running backs? Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram both made the Pro Bowl one year.
That's
you
true.
Use 2 running backs. That happens all the time. You can use 2. I mean, I think Dameon Pierce is Marion Barber. Marion Barber was better when he was the closer, not the full-time 24 carry type of guy. You can use both of them. Bijan Robinson also wasn't used near as much as he could have been as a receiver.
I was going to say, I think if you're going to make the argument for Bijan at 12, I do think one of his strengths is you can motion him out, keep both guys on the field, and really put defenses in hell in that way. I don't know how you guard that.
You can't, and especially if Bobby Slowick knows what he's doing. Like, if Bobby Slowick has a little Shanahan, that's the other thing, like, with Bobby Slowick, like, what is is he going to be like a passing guy? Is he going to be like a run guy? Is he going to be a mix of everything? What is he going to be? Like, what is we don't even know. We don't even know what Slowick is. We barely know what DeMeco is at this point. I mean, I don't want to
kind of know what DeMeco is. I feel like we have a good idea schematically who DeMeco is.
Yeah, but it's
player development wise, he's got a track record.
They had some pretty good ballers though. It's gonna be a little bit different here.
I think Slowick's interesting. I mean, right now he's just kind of the PFF wonder boy who worked his way up the Shanahan tree. I'm going to be really interested to see. He's young. He's got a super unique background. We have no idea. And I think the only way that the Texans offense can go is up after the last 2 seasons.
That's what they said about the offensive line 2 years ago, my friend. And it went down. So that's where you find yourself in trouble. I've been around here long enough to know that that's where you find yourself in trouble when you start assuming that up is the only way to go with the Texans. Jake Asman's getting made fun of for asking about the vest. He was just kidding. Why would people be mad about that?
I can't see the comments right now, so
yeah, it's good because you get distracted by him.
That's true. I can't do two things at once. We've established that previously.
So you're already out though. You're done with Bryce Young. It's over. He's gone.
I mean, I think the momentum is from very credible outlets. I think it's for football. I mean, it never made sense. You and I both said, or they've got too much time not to make the right decision. He's the best player on the field by all accounts. He's interviewed the best. The way teams talk about him, that S2 score being the best in the class, combined with what we believe CJ might have done on that same test. And I think he's pointing as both the safe and the best pick for them right now. And I buy it. Yeah, I absolutely do.
Do you think that, like, there's all this talk about Nick? I do wonder, how does ownership look at that? Like,
I bet they're pissed. They should be picking number one. This should be Houston's coronation of receiving Bryce Young.
And it's really as simple as trading Cooks.
Yeah. Or coming down and saying, hey, we need to evaluate what we have in Jeff Driscoll for next year. This is really important to our organization. We're going to see what Jeff's got.
Cooks, we want to trade you, man. We know you want to be traded. We don't want to risk you out here.
That too. That would have worked. There's so many different ways.
And that's what I was saying the week of. I said it after they didn't trade him. Like, we don't want to risk this, Brandon. Like, we're trying to trade you. You don't want to be here. There's no sense in you, for your career standpoint, risking yourself out here. It's not like he improved his trade value. And again, this is what that is. Jacob Hyatt says, I have resting sad face. No, jackass. I have resting, and no disrespect on the jackass, although jackass. I have resting Bryce Young's not coming to town face. Big difference.
Just a sad thing. I mean, I know we're not allowed to talk about week 18 anymore, but Bryce Young was supposed to be a Texan. That's why we won 2 games the entire year, and we went into week 8. Don't get me started. I'm sure ownership is pissed.
Shouldn't have been playing.
They
told Lovey to win. Cal told me that. But
do you think he meant it?
Yeah.
I can't
try to win. Yes, he meant that. But Brandon Cooks, it would have been very easy. And I heard Cooks on Schefter's podcast. Oh man, you got to tap me on. Shut your ass. You went home. Like, you went home, like, during a thing. You wanted out. Like, oh yeah, you would have had to. No, it would have been easy. We're going to trade you. We're going to sit you on the side.
A lot of different ways they could have done it. And, I'm also going to wonder, I think it's going to be interesting to watch as assumably Bryce Young goes number 1, and we'll see how he does in Carolina this first year. I wonder how we feel a year from now about the decision as it's come out that Houston kind of backed out of a trade, is what I'm kind of reading into that. Is they were nearing in on a deal. It looked like a 3-team thing. And instead Chicago said, we'll just go ahead and take that value from Carolina now. I wonder a year as we're looking at the 2024 NFL draft, and we're just going to wish we'd spent one of these ones or some of those picks last year to move up. It's going to be interesting to watch.
James says, Alexa, put me a list of 5 team QBs that have won a playoff game. It's 0. It is, but doesn't that make him kind of like one of one potentially? Like, how many quarterbacks have even been in this discussion? That's the other thing, like, that kind of makes me think about Bryce Young is, like, how many times have we even had this discussion about it? Because usually it's not even entertained. They don't have the pedigree. They're not 5-star recruits. They don't go win Heismans. They don't go run pro style offenses. They're not widely regarded as the top quarterback in the draft. So, like, if you had that mindset, you probably weren't going to take Aaron Rodgers because of Jeff Tedford. You weren't going to take Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's so dumb, like, to just say, well, it's never happened, so it can't happen. That's not really how sports work. But name me another guy who was even in the discussion at this height. And Alexa, it's 0-2. So I don't.
0-2. Also called code colon 002 and 9 is a fictional.
Alexa, stop. Look what you did, Landry.
Alexa.
But no, I agree. I mean, Bryce is one of the most talented quarterbacks that we've seen enter the draft in quite some time. You have to be that good to be as successful as he's been. And at every stop that he's made, he's been the best player on the football field. And that's why he's going to go first overall. He's that good. I think
he might not.
Exceptions exist for a reason. He might not. That would be great. I would love that.
Great. Be awesome.
I'd forgive Lovie Smith. It would be great. All of it.
Man. Murray says we're the only fan base that 2 weeks out, we want the 4th-ranked quarterback at 2. Who's the 4th-ranked?
Quarter? We don't want Will Levis. I mean,
or do we?
I mean, he said fan base, not the actual team. You know, we can read into that. Now,
or do they?
Nick Caserio want Will Levis? We're not going to talk about that tonight. But
everyone's Alexa's going off now. That's what people are saying in the comments.
Yeah, you set mine off.
All good. Crumpy, appreciate you, man. Hang in there. Another day tomorrow.
Draft nonsense is fun. Hopefully we'll get some more storylines tomorrow.
Yeah, we will.
All right, thanks for having me on. Guys, if you don't, make sure you're checking out my work on the Texans Wire. I'm going to have my Bryce Young scouting report probably sometime tomorrow afternoon or Thursday morning. And also give me a follow on Twitter at John H. Crumpler. Landry, again, thanks for having me.
All right, there you go. Crumpy in the building. James talking about the size still. It's not dumb. Size matters. We knock other prospects down draft boards for lack of physical tools all the time. Yeah, and how many times has that been a mistake? Like that's a reason that a lot of really good players have fallen. So is that like a defense? We do it all the time. We take size and we drop guys. Is that supposed to like add to it? Like, yeah, that's the reason Drew Brees went in the 2nd round. It's because of his size. It's the reason Zach Thomas fell in the draft. It's the reason a lot of guys have fallen is because of size. So yeah, it does happen. That doesn't like justify the it's never happened type of mindset. So I don't know if that's a flex or what. Don't really know, but you are right. Does not happen. Brandon Pimpson says preach. He'll also drop because of size, and we see how that played out. Birdie says CJ Stroud can't read just like Watson. I don't know what that means, sir. Look, if Deshaun Watson were available at 2, I would take Deshaun Watson. I don't think CJ's as good as Deshaun, but I enjoyed watching Deshaun Watson play football here. So you don't think Deshaun's a good player? Don't know. Brian saying, why are we acting like the draft already happened? Not. There's speculation. There's talk. No idea what you mean by that. Why are we acting like the draft has already happened? I don't know. I thought we've been talking about a lot of hypotheticals. If so, give me what happened, because I am not familiar with that. Joe, come on, man. We've gone through this 100 times. I want to know what they think of CJ Stroud if Young is gone. And if they don't love CJ Stroud, I want them to trade back. Yeah, I don't have time to say that Deshaun Watson wasn't good. He was very good here. I still think he's the best quarterback in franchise history. So there's that. Appreciate everyone for coming through. There's a lot of things to take away from what DeMeco did in 2017, what he went through. So we'll try to make some sense of it tomorrow on the show. Fire up the Odyssey app, AUDACY. We'll get into that. Adam Spillane's also going to come through. He asked Rafael Stone about culture. Rafael Stone said with a straight face that the Rockets have one of the best cultures in the NBA. Really? I mean, I'm not saying that, maybe, you shouldn't have a chance to like figure it out. But one of the best cultures in the NBA, huh? All right. And he also said that this is something that I want to show y'all real quick. This is the funniest part about Rafael Stone's thing. I actually want to pull this up just for like an example, because I think this is ridiculous. Like if Jack Easterby said this, like we would kill Jack Easterby. But here is, I'm going to pull up this screen right here. So we're on ESPN.com. Rafael Stone said that and basically insinuated that the media has it out for the Rockets based on past teams. Let's just go to the homepage of NBA.com. And let's scroll down. Look at everything here. Rafael Stone just fired a coach, and he had a 35-minute press conference yesterday. Look for one thing, Rockets, on this entire NBA. I'm not even saying the main headlines. On the entire NBA page. And look, the Texans have been irrelevant too. And when they were irrelevant, we talked about it. I mean, nationally irrelevant. But look at this. The Texans were on the front page when they fired their coaches twice. I can promise you that. And the NFL is a league. Look at this. Find me one mention of the Rockets. Look at this. Look at that. Got Jeremy Roach mentioned. Look at this. We're still going. Not one mention. Look at all that. And he thinks the NBA and the reporters are out to get him. Man, I always said, and I said this too, Easterby, you don't need to talk, man, because you can't even defend yourself. What? There's a conspiracy. You can't make this stuff up, man. Hilarious. He ain't Jack Easterby, but man, crazy, really crazy. All right, appreciate everyone for coming through. I'm going to talk to Adam Spillane about this tomorrow, 10:45. He was the one that asked the question. We'll continue to talk about this DeMeco 2017 impact, and we'll continue to have some fun. Appreciate y'all. Tomorrow we're going to be 15 days away from the draft, and we'll ride along. Murray says the media going to defend the media. You're generalizing, sir. I don't defend anyone. If someone says something silly, I'm going to say it. So you're generalizing, and quite frankly, you're in the wrong place if you're going to say that. That's definitely not true. Can promise you that's not. So take your generalizations on out of here and stick it, buddy. Birdie says, Landry, thoughts on the bum Astros? I don't think they're bums. I think they'll be fine. I had them as a 90-win team. I think they're going to flip the switch. And I think they'll be good. We'll see what happens, though. Murray, all love to you, my friend. Appreciate you, brother. You're a good dude. I don't defend the media at all. I promise you. It's definitely not I. Tomorrow, 6 days from the wedding for Jason. Enjoy that. Jacob, sorry for the jackass. I'm a jackass. You're a jackass. We're all jackasses. All fun. Appreciate you. No matter what happens, though, just remember, love you all. When it comes to this Texan stuff, we are all in this together. Have a good one.